Hello there, Reason Users, PoohBear here, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to quickly go over the new two players which have come from Reason Studios. We've got the Note tool and we've got the Random tool. They're designed obviously to manipulate the MIDI messages which are obviously coming down the player stack, and you can do all kinds of whizzy things about them. And we're going to talk about the good and the bad and the ugly, and mainly good. There is a little bit of a bad and there's a little bit of an ugly. When we get into talking about the outputs and that, yeah, there's a few little gotchas which you've got to be slightly aware of. So let's start off with the Note tool. We start off actually over onto this left-hand side because this is really the flow of it, and we can switch the flow around by coming into the mode, and we can obviously switch things about, but I'll talk about that a little bit later so you know what we're actually talking about. So the first thing you've got to do is, or you don't have to do, you can actually filter the note if you wish. You don't have to filter the notes, you can obviously go straight onto the adjustment, but we can actually say, hey, let's filter the note. In this case it's filtering between C1 and C6, so anything outside of that range it's not going to actually play, and it's actually going to block it. You can also do the velocity, and you can do the velocity only, so you have to be playing within a particular velocity range for us to actually push it forward, and obviously you can do both as well. I think a majority of the time you're probably going to be just filtering on the pitch range, and it's a simple case that we can just pick up these and we can obviously move these around to actually change the range what we wish it to be. Next, once we've actually got the notes, as you can see, we're going to have this little arrow. It's either going to block it or it's going to allow it to go forward, and then we're going to get into where we can adjust things. We have a pitch and we've got this offset, and obviously if we click on the offset you can actually change it to a fixed. So you might say, hey, I want a fixed pitch coming in, so no matter where I'm playing on the keyboard I'm going to have a fixed pitch coming in, and you might go off and play something like a drum. Maybe that's that sort of thing you might want. You can also offset this, so this is like obviously semitones, and you go to plus 24 or minus 24. Now you might think that's not much of a range, but then we can actually go plus 3 octaves and minus 3 octaves. So 3 octaves is going to be 36, 36 plus 24, that's going to be 60, so you've got a 60 semi-tone range, which isn't a bad range overall. Over here we've got two kinds of views to play around with the velocity. We've got velocity offset, so you may wish to either take it down or you may wish to push it up. So this is always going to make things sound obviously a little bit louder if you're playing them quiet, and vice versa. If you're playing them really loud it's going to slightly quieten them down for the offset. We've also got a fixed, so you may say, hey, I always want a fixed. You've also got a scale which goes from like 1 to 800, so it'll obviously scale whatever you're playing up and down. But again, a lot of the time I'll obviously be using this particular view here. Really, when just by moving this up by that, we're actually doing an offset and we're doing a scale as well. So we're offsetting and scaling, and I'll obviously demonstrate that a little bit later, the sort of figures you get out. And you can also grab this and obviously do curves one or the other. Because of my little Mickey Mouse keyboards, if I'm playing with, say it's my APC, this is the kind of curve I might just sort of put onto it, because it's very hard to get very low velocities on it. They tend to be, they haven't got a very great velocity range, but this will actually help that kind of thing. Over this side it starts to get a little bit more interesting with note length. We've got a choice of the minimum note length, so if I play my key really quickly it's actually going to play it for a quarter note. So I could actually put this on to say a whole key, and I'm just going to bring up a little overlay. So this is actually what I'm going to play on my keyboard. So you're going to note I'm going to play something very quickly and it lingers on for quite a while. We have a maximum, so I could set this really short. So this time I'm actually going to hold the key down, and you can see it's very short. And we've obviously got a fix, so we can actually say, hey, no matter how long or how quick I'm playing my key, it's always going to be a quarter note. Yeah, so you've got that. I'm going to come back to the restricted poly stuff. Next we've got the hold stuff, which is again quite interesting stuff we got down here. We've got a choice of hold all, a latch and a chord. So if I was to, just going to bring a player device up here to make it a little bit easier so you can see what's going on. I'm going to drop that in there. So first of all I'm going to put it on hold all. So as you can see I'm playing a key here, and here you can see they're all being held. Quite straightforward. We can reset that by just hitting that button and it'll actually reset that. Also obviously on the back we've got ourselves a nice little trigger, so we can put a trigger CV in to do that, and I'll talk about something else in a second about how we can obviously do a remote override. The next one we've got, I'm going to go down to chord, and this is until last release. So if I played a chord, fine, If I start now, you're noticing I'm releasing a key, I'm releasing a key on the keyboard. I've still got one finger on the keyboard, but we're still playing that particular chord until I release that note, and then it's going to release, ready for me to play the next chord. Next, we've got this latch until next note. I'm going to say, I'm giving it a humming and hawing. Admittedly, it's not quite that, but I understand they've only got a small amount of space of what they can put in there. So let's actually demonstrate what we're actually talking about here. If you think about it, if I was to say hold down, again like that chord, very similar sort of thing, and I'm actually going to release two of them. In fact, I can release all of them, and you can see the chord is actually still being held. As soon as I play another note, it actually releases the chord, and it's going to now hold that particular note. The reason I'm humming and hawing about it is it says until next note. Well, let's say theoretically I've played that key, just because I'm holding it down I'm going to play another key. Well, that's the next note, but it's actually latched onto this key. Look, if I let go, it's still latched. So it's, you know, it's until all gate information coming in, I suppose, to the note tool, does it kind of re-censor until it gets a new gate and says, fine, I'm going to release that. But it's quite a handy one, I think, especially for probably us people who do like generative stuff, so we can actually have that latched, and then we can come along and we can send another signal in, and then we can latch that one instead. Be careful with the latches with the note length. It could catch you out, because if you've got, say, a little bit of a longer note length and you play a couple of different notes, it actually can latch both of them notes at the same time if you've got them both on at the same time. So just be aware of that. Now we're going to be talking about the ugly. First note will always work. Last note can be hit and miss. Low notes and high notes, again, can be hit and miss. And that's why I refer to it as ugly, because you're not going to get the same result every single time unless we do certain things, and I'll obviously demonstrate that a little bit later. I'm actually just going to change the mode of this keyboard play checker, because now when I hit a note and I hit, say, several notes, we can see the speed difference between me actually hitting the note. So, 3 milliseconds, 7 milliseconds later. So I've asked for so let's change this first note here, and let's change this down to just one. So we should just hear one sound. So I'm going to play 3 notes. We can hear one note, and obviously the note you should be hearing is the one which should say 0. If you end up with 2 zeros, it's going to obviously, I don't know how that's actually working, it's probably going to take the lowest one. So there's a 0, you heard the kick. And we've got 2 zeros there. To be honest, there might not be zeros because I'm actually doing this in milliseconds, so I'm going down to samples. But it's decided to say the kick is the first note, which is fair enough. So that all sounds quite good. Let's change this now. Let's actually do that same test, and let's do the last note. Hang on, I heard 3 notes then. And again, I'm hearing that kick and that one. And this is why this is nasty. And the result we're actually getting coming out of this is even nastier. So we could probably look at that as well. So let me quickly zoom out. So what I've actually done, I'm actually going to take this MIDI CV converter here, and I'm just going to put that on top of this stack here. So we actually just flip round to the back. So it's a very straightforward setup. Obviously, I'm taking this gate and note. Let me come over here and just drag the screen up a bit more. There we go, so we get a bit more onto the screen. We're just going into this stack here, which we had earlier. This is now going directly over to here, so you can see the difference between coming from this output, which is coming out the bottom. Whatever's happening over here, you're going to see on this one here as well. I just wanted to show that it's not anything to do with the MIDI CV converter, so these 2 denotes will always show the same information, and then we're going to go down the rest of the stack. So as I say, if I now hit them 3 notes again, we can hear it's hitting several things. We can see it ends on one note. We can see it ends on one note, because that's coming from here to here. Over here, this has come from the CV out. We've still got 3 notes. And as I start to release the notes, and I go, whoop, it still hasn't released it. Is it going to release on this one? No. So I've got to release that last note, and then this will actually go off. But it's not in that order, by the way. So because we're on last note, I can come down here and I can see the number 6. If I release that one first, theoretically, they should all go off, and they are. And I've still got these 2 notes held down, you understand? So it's the way the gating information works. We've only got one piece of gate information coming from here over to this device. And by the way, very, very quickly, my CV8. So let's drop that CV8 in there. I'm just going to flip round to the back of the rack just for demonstration purposes. I'm going to take this one out and put that into the gate. I'm going to take this note and I'm going to put this into here. I'm going to flip back around. Whoops. I'm going to want to put that one in there, sorry. I'm going to put that one in there. So let's give ourselves a little bit of gate information. And now watch what happens when I turn this knob up and what is going to happen here. We've got one piece of gate information. And as you can see, we've got some funnies going on. We're missing some, probably because I'm just jumping. So if I go up really fast, you can see I can make bigger gaps. If I go down really slow, I shouldn't get any gaps at all. And so when I now drop this gate, this is equivalent to a gate, when I put that to 0, they all go. Yeah, so I can turn it on. And then I can just pull this knob down. And that's effectively what we're kind of getting, which is happening here. So that's why you've got to kind of, I'd say it's wrong. You're going to end up getting into certain funnies. But one of the key things is I'm playing 3 notes. We're only actually hearing this one here. They're all turned off. And you can hear it. It's not quite working. It's not just the last notes. The same would be true for low notes. Low notes might be slightly better because I know my thumb happens to tend to hit quicker. At the moment, it's quite interesting because this one, my little pinky's actually been hitting more than the others, which is usually not the case. There, I'm used to my thumb being first. It might be because I'm actually at a real funny angle to the keyboard what I'm playing. But you can see now, it's sounding like we're only getting one key. It's only because I happen to be playing that key the lowest. If I decided to try and get that other finger to hit first, oh, we've still done it. There we go. So I've gotten close, only 3 milliseconds out, but you heard more than one sound. And there we go, we heard 3 sounds. So that is an issue, I think, that we've got with this particular restricted notes. It's going to give you some funny glitches, which is a real shame. And they can resolve this really, really easy. And I don't mean to be blowing my own trumpet, but I am going to blow my own trumpet just a little bit. I'm just going to whiz this over here, and we can just make this a little bit bigger. So this is a device I wrote in Volta Modular. Think of this at the top as your MIDI in. I know it's a poly CV in, but just think of that as your MIDI in. And think of these as each of your notes out. So there'd be equivalent of me, if I set that to 1, well, I just have one cable coming out. What makes this device actually work, it's got all the similar sort of things as we've got over here, plus it's got loads more things going on. But it's all to do with reordering how the notes are coming in. And what makes this work over that is I've got this new gate delay, and that's all we need to add is a slight delay. So I end up writing this device to help me to set this up correctly. So if I was to set this, say, to 20, and you noticed when I was actually playing a lot of these things, they were a lot less. In fact, I could probably bring that down, but it's going to wait 18 milliseconds to receive all its notes. So from that first key I pressed, it's going to wait 18 milliseconds. It's then going to take all this data and then analyze it. And in this case, it's going to say, well, this is the high note and this is the note I'm going to play. So it would never play them two. It's just giving itself that little bit of time to work out what it needs to calculate. And that's all we need in here. We need something just like that simple delay. And by the way, so when I take my hands off this key, so I'm not playing anymore, this gets reset. So as soon as I now hit it, the timer is now going. Obviously 18 milliseconds have passed, so it'll say, hey, I would actually play that. Even if I do play this, and you can see that's going to be like 6 seconds later. So that's what's happening. So let's quickly move on. But before actually I do move on, when you right click, obviously you can do edit remote override, edit remote override. In fact, let me just zoom in with my application zoom. There we go. Right clicking on some bits, you're not going to get your edit remote override, which is a real pain because this is like a custom display. I suppose what confuses me ever so slightly with this custom display, I think this is all a custom display because I can move it around. So I'm surprised I can right click on some things, but hey, that's just me not quite understanding. So what we can actually do is we can go up to our options at the top here. We can go to remote override edit mode, go into that, and now we can obviously assign ourselves a control from our controller. So we can actually do that from remote. As I'm actually here, I'm going to scroll down to this one here and click on this one here. And you can see there are a lot of stuff that we can actually control, which is really, really nice. So giving us loads of stuff which we can come along and do this all from our controller without having to keep, say, putting our hands on this. And I think it is nice that we can actually do this sort of stuff on the fly. As I mentioned, well, on the back, we've got ourselves some lovely CVE and stuff, so we can actually turn things on and off. We can actually obviously put LFOs and all sorts of other goodness, envelopes, all kinds of things into here. We've got like a little trigger, so we can obviously reset that hole. That's really nice. And then down on this one again, we've got some lovely stuff which is going on here. We haven't actually talked about this device, but as we're at the back, we've got some lovely ports. Again, what we can actually do is I've got some gates out. Now, here is where I'm going to... another bad or ugly, whichever what you want to call it, is I'm very disappointed, obviously, on the outputs, that these outputs are not poly. They needed to just add themselves a little poly mode to turn this on and off, because we're ejecting notes, but we're only ejecting mono notes. As you could see, we're getting funnies from this particular output, what is actually happening, because it's only sending one gate out information, but we can then be having several notes sort of highlighted, and if you're letting things go, they're not letting go until you let the last gate go. And so all they needed to do was make this poly, and I think they would have hit a home run with it, to be honestly. We just need to sort out that restricted note and this, and they've definitely got themselves knocking that ball out of the park. It really would have been great, but they haven't done it mono, so we are going to be restricted. The fact that this is actually a player stack where we are pumping in lots of information, and we could be rejecting quite a lot of information, it'd be quite nice. On the output, there'd be quite a bit of information coming out. You know, we're restricting the poly. You know, I'm playing a 5-note chord. I'm going to be restricting it down to 1 note. The rejected is going to be 4 notes, which are, yeah, it's just not going to work that well. And it's a shame, you know, because we're on both sides that this is actually happening. But hey, there are a few gotchas that we've actually got to watch out for, what's going on. As I say, you know, with these outs, you saw what I was doing with that CV8 when I sort of turned it up. It's equivalent to that kind of thing which is going on. It's just not quite as noticeable. So random tool. So random tool is actually quite a nice little device. I just want to make sure I've got things all turned off up here so I don't affect it. I'm just going to turn this straight back into a piano. So straightforward, we've got ourselves our conditional, so I'm just going to turn a couple of things off. So if it's like listen up, it's going to play it. If it's not going to play it. So at the moment we're on this step here, so we're going to move on to the next step. So this step is a blank. So I've pressed my chords. You can see I've pressed my chords up here. Maybe I should bring my overlay on. There we go. You can see my chords are being held there. Next time I press it, I'm going to get something, going to get something. Now we're going to get nothing. Quite straightforward, eh? What I'm going to do this time is I'm going to take this button off, and now we're going to take that chord, and it's going to treat it as 3 individual notes. So it's going to play the first one, it comes across, it's going to ignore the second, it's going to play the third. So let's play, I don't know what chord I was playing actually. There we go. And so you can see it there. What I need to do is I need to put a denote underneath so you can actually see that actually happening underneath as well. So let me quickly grab that, pull that down here, hold the control key down. Because where are we here? We're going to have the same thing. Sorry, I hit a bum note down there. So you can see we've got 3, we've only got 2 coming out the bottom. So this is where we are. So we're obviously going to here. So we should get 3 notes. 1, 2, 3. 3 notes have gone through. Now we're going to get 2. So it's going to be blank, 1, 2. Blank, 1, 2 again. As we're here, we should again only get 2. 2, and now we should get 3. Yeah. So you could use that to your advantage. What I always say is, if you've got an even number when you're playing around with this sort of thing, give yourself an odd number of steps, because obviously you can come here and we can obviously drag that down. And if I was to say I'm playing the same 4 keys, I don't know, let's play 4 keys. It's going to skip that one. But for you to actually hear the same cycle, it's going to have to go around 7 times, because every time I'm going around it's actually dropping a note off and it's shifting it around. In fact, because I'm playing the same 4 notes, it won't be that as many. If I was playing 8 different notes, then that would be the case. So it'd be half the amount. It's not going up. There we go. I'll put it back to that. Let me just turn it off so we don't affect anything else. Probability, is it going to play it or isn't it going to play it? Is that straightforward? Very, very straightforward. So we've got ourselves random pitch, random velocity, and random note. Let's move this up ever so slightly. Obviously, again, we've got some different options. So we can choose octaves, plus or minus 2 octaves. We can just go up octaves if you wish. You go semitones, you can do a bit between, or you can actually set it. So you, at the moment, obviously it's 100%. If I'm playing, you can see on the F, and I'm always playing that C. It's always going to be the same. So I might play that down there. And every now and then, even though I'm playing the same note, it's going to obviously play that one. Again, with something like genitive, because we've got control in the back, we could obviously come along, we could set a particular note, we could have this chance up, so we could have a lot of random stuff going on, but it'll always come back and find a particular, when I talk about bass, I'm not talking about bass down here, we're talking about a bass note, so it can actually hook onto that like an anchor while it's going off doing other things, so it doesn't sound quite as wild. You can control the wildness. With velocity offset, very similar sort of thing. We can obviously do offset plus or minus. We can do a between, so it's always going to be offset in between something. And we can do a set to as well. If you said set to 127 or whatever number you put in here and 100%, that's the equivalent of going onto this device and just using fixed and setting that number there. But so you're going to want to put a chance in. And by the way, these are actually at the moment are working all separately. And then also we've got these notes here where we can come along and say, actually, I want you to play between, and you can't see everything because it's gone off the screen. Say between there and there, or I can set it to a particular note. When these actually kick in, so I'm going to play something. If the lights come on, it means it's actually chances kicked in and it's actually done something. So it's set me to C3 and the velocity to the loudest possible. Not exactly anything exciting there, is it? So let me change that to, let's do between. There we go. So I'm always playing the same note now. I'm going to keep just playing that C up there. And every now and then you're going to see things come up. The between, I've noticed the difference between this one and between the note length is this light comes on and then it goes off. It's like, well, I've played my note for whatever duration I held it for, and now I'm going to turn myself off. And I probably need to turn that chance up so you can see that one working. But as you can see, it's gone off. So that one and that one went. And now what we can do is we can do sync them all. So they're now all at 100%. And it doesn't matter which one I'm selecting. They all obviously changing at the same time. So when they do kick in, it'll all be in at the same time. So that light did come on a minute, but it went off very quickly. So you have to be quick. There, it's on. There. You get it. So that's what you can do with that. And as I said, there's obviously loads of goodness on the back of what we can do with that as well. I'm actually going to talk about just a couple of little gotchas before we finish. I've got myself a scaling cord up here, so I'm actually going to just turn that on. And what we're going to do this time is to do with the note view. And this is, I'm just going to turn this off so that we don't get any funnies there. And we're going to come over, and we're actually going to come over to this particular stack here via the outputs, so you can see what's going on. And I'll probably end up just muting. Let's mute that out, or turn it right down. There we go. Let's turn it right down. So obviously I'm playing scales and chords. I've actually played a chord. Oops, I didn't need to. It's actually done what it has to do, and it's actually pushed the output out. But you can see down here what we've got. We've got all the notes which we expect. But over here, we've only actually got two. So I'm just going to play one note now. We're just going to play a chord, and you can see only one note is coming through. Yeah. Now, with the restricted mode, I think I'll quickly say this now, is this will always work now. Whereas before I say it wasn't working, it's going to say, well, look, that's the high note, there's the high note. That's always going to work. So we're only getting one note now down here, which we've said right. And the same with the low note, it's the same thing. It will actually always pick it up correctly. So that's doing it correctly because it's receiving all the notes in at the same time. So remember down here when I say when I play my finger, you can see it's all different times. If we was to hook that up, and we can actually do that, he says, we can actually do that. Let's grab that and pull this over here. Here we go. We've got scales and chords. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click here. I'm going to highlight that. I'm now going to be playing this voltage from that, but there's no sound. But you can see, well, I've actually, let me just play one key. They're all zeros, so it's bringing everything in. And because it's brought it all in at a zero, it's actually able now, it's got time to go through and go, well, this is the highest note. This is the lowest note. This is going to be the whatever note, the first note. Well, the first note and the last note, they're interesting ones. So let me just turn that off here before I forget. Let's go whizzing back over. So the first and last notes are very interesting because, why? Well, if I was to play this, I'm here. Oh, I need to make sure I've got that highlighted, haven't I? There we go. So we come through, this is the first note. I'm going to leave my finger there and I'm going to come in, set that to last, play the same thing. It's the same note. So the first and last are always going to be the same when you're playing it via scales and chords, yeah? It's not going to look at this and go, well, that's the first note and that's the last note, because they're all coming in at the same time, so it's analysing it from sort of like a digital point of view. Delta has a way of serialising data, so basically, as you can see, I'm playing a chord, got one note, and that's obviously getting the gate and CV data from the note tool over to this stack. So if I now turn Delta on, it will now play the chord. Obviously I'm only playing with one finger, so I'm playing scales and chords, but now at least it's coming through. Basically, I would say if you wanted to convert data from one stack to the other, I'd always use the MIDI CV converter for doing this sort of thing. But there's one other little gotcha I thought I'd very quickly do, he says. Let's see if we can actually do this. What I'm going to quickly do here is I'm going to just hit record. In fact, I just want to turn off, no, I want that on. I want to turn off that scales and chords up there. I want to hit record. I want to go. Okay, and let me hit stop, because I played myself a few little chords in there. The whole purpose of that, and I think we had something restricted, so I'm just going to turn that restriction just off for a second, and I'm going to play this. And I want to double make sure that this one on here is actually turned on. So that's what we're actually going to listen to. And I'm going to turn this one off. So we're now going via the tools node output over into this instrument here. So this is just a little gotcha I thought I'd demonstrate, and it's getting the notes obviously from here. So as you can hear, all sounds hunky-dory, doesn't it? Of course it does. So what we're going to do, we're going to do a Control A, and we're going to just quickly quantize it up. So we've quantized it all up. So let's play it back this time. Only one note. So it's just a little gotcha to watch out for. You know, you could record something, it may all look and sound okay, and then all of a sudden you quantize some stuff up and it's not going to sound okay at all. So these are the little gotchas that you've got to watch out for within this particular tool, especially on the back end. Apart from that, I do like these devices. I know I might have sort of hammered them there a bit, but I do like them. They're okay. They really are okay. They're nice, they're confined, they're neat, they're tidy, they're quick to use. Yeah, they get you to third base without a doubt, and I think they're really good. They're missing on the poly on the back, which is a shame, and obviously the restricted poly, they need that like gated delay to make that work, because we're getting different results if you're using scales and chords to if you're playing it to then if you're quantizing it coming through it, and that's not a very good end user experience. Anyway, I'm just going to say thank you for watching and bye for now.